Hey everyone, and welcome back to another analysis video. We're going to be looking at Team Liquid Philippines and Team Falcons PH, their draft tendencies heading into the playoffs. And I decided to lump them together because there are a lot of similarities in their priorities, patterns, and even unique picks. And at the same time, they are the opening match of our playoffs. High drama! It was Team Liquid Philippines that Team Falcons PH beat in an incredible 3-game series to just make the Cinderella run into the playoffs, and then they meet each other again in the first round, an elimination match. And Team Liquid PH, folks, they want to be able to defend their title. They want to make it to the M7 World Championship, potentially go on the Golden Road. But the team that beat them in their second to the last match of the regular season, Team Falcons, their longtime rival, is their first opponent. That's crazy. And that's why I decided to lump them together. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who supported the channel. A lot of you haven't subscribed yet, so please, I humbly ask you to do so if you have not yet. You don't need to click the bell icon if you don't want to get notified. I know there's a lot of notifications that get thrown our way every day, but just a subscribe, a like, and a share, only if you want to, will really go a long way into making sure that our channel just gets the ball rolling with getting even more eyes to it. Secondly, I want to apologize. This video was supposed to come out last Saturday, but honestly, I decided to choose my family. You all know I was sick for majority of last week, and then I dropped the video on Thursday, went and did the stream. That got me sick just a little bit even more, so I needed to take another day to really rest and make sure I was okay. Oh no, that was last Wednesday when I did that. And then my family is currently just recovering through a loss of a loved one, my grandmother, my mom's mom. And so I've been deciding to choose to spend more time with my mom. Simple as that. So I'm pretty sure all of y'all will understand why this video is coming in late and why I won't be able to do the analysis videos for all of the teams heading to the playoffs as originally planned. I hope you understand, but don't worry, I didn't just get lazy. I decided to choose my family. Alright, let's go into Team Falcons PH. Now, the interesting thing about their draft between the two teams, again, very similar, a lot of similar priorities and even unique picks. So similar to a lot of the teams this season, tendency, of course, blue side, just go ahead and pick up your jungler already. Or if you're Team Falcons PH, you can decide to pick up your mid laner, which is most likely the Juicin or the Farsa. In most scenarios, it's the Juicin for few. For Kyle TZ's pick, it revolved usually around Lancelot, YSS, and Baksha. Maybe Team Falcons PH won't be going down the Baksha route as much, but for the first half of the season, they were known as one of the best teams for picking up the tanky fighter jungler, so who knows, that could still be a thing. And then Lancelot and Yi Sun-shin, as I mentioned. So that's the usual first picks. Now, there was something that we saw in Team, I believe it was Team Liquid PH versus Team Falcons. And we started to see a lot more in the last matches of the season. And something that, based on what I've heard, we've been seeing a lot in MPL ID, especially since week 7, if I'm not mistaken, that this priority could change because of the inclusion of CC now. Not crowd control, but CC the hero as one of the topics that you can put in the gold lane and as a flex EXP priority. That might be something that changes for Team Falcons PH and even Team Liquid. The fact that they can both maybe pick up the CC as the first pick to put up the option of eventually putting it into the gold lane for either Super Marco or Oheb, or just putting into the EXP lane for Flap DZ or Sanford. That's something that Team Falcons PH hasn't done a lot. First picking their EXP laner. Other teams have done that, especially with Arlot. Sometimes it is the CC. Now, when we go into the blue 2-3 pick for Team Falcons Philippines, very widespread as you can see, but two things hold true. Yes, if you look at blue 2-3 for Team Falcons, it looks like, oh wow, so hard to predict. But then if you look at their second phase, that's when you start saying, okay, most of the time they're going to be looking for the Ogwen and Super Marco pickup to come in there because they're looking at priority for Ogwen and Super Marco getting the best matchups possible in their role. So despite this initially looking at, wow, widespread, how are you going to predict this? There are some things that hold true for a lot of teams in the blue side for MPL Philippines Season 16. Most teams do not have a blue 4-5 pick for their jungler because as much as possible, they want it locked in the first phase of the blue side. Secondly, most teams will also look into picking up the gold and roam pick in the second phase of their blue side drafting, meaning that you can safely go into most matches thinking it's gonna be jungle, mid, EXP first phase, roam, gold second phase, and that's something that we'll be seeing in the draft for Team Liquid as well. Let's look into the red side priorities now, wherein you see a lot of the similar tendencies. When you look at this, what roles are those again? Sorry, I went back way too far back. All right, there we go. So if you look at Kyle, TZ, and Fuse pick, still most likely going into the first phase, even on the red side. A lot of heavy priority brought into there. But again, the inclusion of CC, a lot of more teams are really starting to see the value of Arlot yet again. Certain banning patterns leaving heroes such as Alice open, the fact that Harith is still gonna be a hot commodity. This could change, but I see why, because of like a lot of the trades in the center of the map involving Juicid, Farsa, that seems to be like one of the go-to picks for Few and Falcons. And then, of course, with a lot of the top jungler picks still being Lancelot, YSS, you could even put in a sneaky surprise tanky fighter jungler here, but most of the times it's going to be Lance, YSS, or if you're TNC Pro Team, it's Hayabusa for Zyda at the Red 3. That is the tendency of Team Falcons PH. Then when you go into Red 3 and Red 4, you still see the chance that the Kyle TZ pick can go into the second phase, but most of the time it is still Ogwen and Super Marco's picks getting picked up in the second phase of the draft. So there's a clear formula for Team Falcons PH and a clear bias towards making sure that Ogwen and Super Marco have their priorities and have better matchups for most of the time. Let's look at Team Liquid Philippines and see how similar that actually is for them. Look at the blue one picks for Team Liquid Philippines now. Very similar to Team Falcons PH with priorities into Carl, TZ, and Sanji, making sure that gets locked in. And then if you go into the blue 2-3 picks, a wide spread, but not as close in the numbers compared to Team Falcons PH. So Liquid, they're a little bit more focused in their goal in making sure that if you look at the priorities, JP and Oheb get their pick in the second phase. Blue 2-3 usually goes, you still round out, make sure Carl TZ gets his pick already locked in the first phase. And then the Sanford pickup especially, depending on the trades that you saw, and so that you don't have to play too much a little bit into the EXP trade a little bit more. But showing the flexibility of the San duo next to Oheb and JP, not too far off, although you still could say that this is still most of the time going to be an Oheb and JP pick locked in already for blue 4-5. Sanford and Sanji are also options there because they still have some surprise factors there. Sanji still has that Selena that he could pick, surprise Loyi pick, maybe, although we've seen a considerable dip in the pickings of Loyi. Wouldn't be surprised if down the line, if he hasn't yet, that maybe a Eve can come in later for Team Liquid Philippines through the center of the map. Sanji can also play the Angela, though it doesn't have a win. There's a possibility. So very similar for Team Falcons PH in terms of their blue side priorities. Then if you decide to look at the red picks priority for Team Liquid Philippines, not that too far off as well, except that compared to the laser-focused intentions of Team Falcons PH for making sure that they get their picks at mid at jungle, there's an even wider spread in priorities because next to Carl TZ, the JP pick can actually come out much earlier for Team Liquid Philippines. Not frequent to see this for Team Falcons PH. Remember, if you look back at their stats on their side, most of the time Ogwen's pick, if you look at Ogwen, only twice this entire season picked in red 1-2. Well, for Team Liquid Philippines, that's where they get their flexibility a little bit more onto the red side. They can change their priorities up suddenly. Then if you go into red 3, most of the time you don't see the JP or Sanji pick locked in here because they're saving that for the second phase of the draft, or it was already picked up in the Juicin Farsa priority steal between the two. In the red 1-2, it's the typical trade for blue 1-3 and then red 1-2. Who gets Juicin, who gets Farsa, maybe who even gets Kimmy. Then when you go into red 5, interestingly enough, for Team Liquid Philippines, different from Falcons, much wider spread. And you get this because you have a wide spread as well at a red 1-2. So if blue side looks very similar for Team Falcons PH and Team Liquid PH, for Team Falcons, their red side actually looks a lot similar to their blue side, while the red side of Team Liquid Philippines has a lot more variance and has a lot more surprise factor for their red side, for TLPH. So that's an interesting difference between the two in terms of the drafts. Let's go back to the Team Falcons PH side and look at their top picks. So I'm just gonna put this up there while I'm reading out from the notes. Hopefully you can follow. So for the strongest heroes for Team Falcons Philippines, Flap TZ got back-to-back Uranus MVPs against AP Bren in week 7. He is 50-50 with the R-Lot. Having the strange tendency of missing the first big final slash he commits, but he can recover and usually has a big impact with it. I have lost count how many times this season I've pointed out that story that happens in so many Flap TZ R-Lot games. He'll miss the first big final slash, but then land the rest to eventually crawl back the win for the team, and suddenly you have to really start thinking about the R-Lot for Flap. He'll miss the first, but the next ones will be really impactful. And then Lapu Lapu and CC, though he only got to play the CC once most of the time, he really is an R-Lot, Uranus, Lapu Lapu. Phovius has no wins. His Alice has no wins, but you also have to keep that into consideration because Alice might be one of the top picks that drafts will revolve around in the MPL Philippines Season 16 playoffs. Kyle TZ's Yisun Shin was a standout in Week 7 and was even a standout in the series against Team Liquid Philippines, but only has 3 wins with the hero. But you still really have to respect it if you're going up against Falcons, because that is the pick synonymous with their Cinderella playoffs or playoffs contention run. He was more synonymous with tank junglers like Baksha and Akai earlier in the season, and of course the Fredrin. That's something they still have to lean on. Something that I wouldn't want to see Falcons pick up anymore would be the Hayabusa. Not really the biggest fans of their Hayabusa and even their Joy games. So if they can revolve their drafts around YSS, Lancelot, Fredrin, Akai, maybe the Baksha, I think that's a very solid jungle hero pool that they could just play around and trade around in the drafts. Fuse most picked heroes are actually Juicin and Farsa, something that we're going to be seeing very similar alongside Sanji. And if it's not those two, all the others are losses for Falcons. I think the Kimmy can still be an option. I wouldn't want to see Falcons try an Angela again, but who knows? Maybe it'll actually come back to bite me, and then an Angela is going to be an integral part to their win in a playoff game. Maybe. Kagura has dipped out a little bit, but I think she's still going to be an option for some teams, although a lot might double down a little bit more on just making sure that they get Farsa, Juicin, Kimmy, and then it's just up to their discretion if they still want to consider playing heroes such as the Selena, if they're enough utility to picking up the Valentina, although Valentina does struggle in this metagame. Maybe it will show up if the other team shows an Eve or has a chance to go and pick up an Eve. So instead of banning out an Eve, let's say hypothetically heading into the second phase of the draft, opposing team doesn't have the mid laner yet, you can pick up the Valentina 4, because if you set it up so that Eve is the best possible pick, then the team on the other side might want to pick up the Eve, but you already have the Valentina, so then you win that trade. All right, so just tossing ideas out there. Let's look at Owen now. He has a wide pool of 14 heroes. Fun fact, the roamer in MPL Philippines Season 16 who actually has the widest hero pool is Chapnu. He has 16 unique hero picks at roam. Crazy. Franco, Kaja, Grok, Matilda are the winningest heroes for Ogwen. So Grok is at 60%, Kaja 100% win rate, and I think if in the second phase in the draft, if the ordering is to be followed, teams might not be willing to pick up the to give the Kaja to Ogwen if in the most likely scenario he still hasn't picked it up, his roam pick by the second phase. Franco, also a very good pick, ban worthy, very similar to Team Liquid Philippines. JP has a bannable Franco as well, and of course Aurora Slight, very bannable Franco, really good at that hero. If a team decides to give a Light or JP or Ogwen Franco, I'll be quite surprised. If they're ready to beat it, go for it. If you're not, then maybe don't go for it, you know. Surprisingly enough, Ogwen does not have a win in Kalea just yet. He's one of the players this season to get a win on a chip in the few times that we got to see him. So I think chip is one of the things that's going to be hotly contested in the series between Team Liquid Philippines and Falcons, and to whoever goes up against Aurora, because you also have to respect their chip there. They only got to show it once or twice this season, if I'm not mistaken, but still something that's worthy of respect. And last but not the least, looking at the picks of Super Marco, widespread as well. His Bane doesn't have any losses just yet. Hasn't won with the 1-1. Bruno undefeated for him, but since majority of the season was a struggle for Team Falcons PH, there's no surprise as to why these win rates are kind of spread out, kind of weird looking. He does have a wide hero pool of 11, with Moskov and Granger being his most picked, and I think one of the most important things is to see how well he can consistently play CC in the gold lane. Again, CC gold as one of the answers in the laning phase, potentially up against the Harith if the opposing team doesn't rotate well for the Harith. CC, watch out for that. And as we said earlier, the Alice, watch out for that as one of the topics for the playoffs. Also, he's one of the marksmen this season who picks Claude when the option is there, and has a very good win rate with it as well. So that's Team Falcons PH. Let's look at Team Liquid. All right, let's just breeze through Team Liquid Philippines best heroes real quickly, because I want to just start showing drafts and start analyzing those as well. Gatot Kacha, most picked and most played. There is that one game where they played Novaria for JP, and they really controlled that game. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Novaria ends up showing up for Team Liquid Philippines maybe 2 or 3 more times in the playoffs as a surprise pick up. Chip is undefeated in the hands of Team Liquid Philippines, so maybe do not give Chip anymore for TLPH. But with how priorities go, what if Team Liquid Philippines are crazy enough to surprise priority rush to the chip in the first phase of drafting and start taking out the best answers for it? Kalea, also very solid for TLPH, 3 out of 4. High loss, very solid for them as well. Baksha, after that one game in the last game against Team Falcons, I still think Team Liquid Philippines are pretty good with this pick. Even though they're 1 for 3, I like their rotations with it. I like their tempo with it. Still put it up there as an option, but maybe work just a little bit on the timings, and decision making of when you decide to go in. And then the Matilda, also a very good win rate for them. And then the Franco as well. So see Franco, Matilda, Chip, a lot of shared heroes between him and Ogwen, and watch it out for those being contested. Carl TZ is YSS Lancelot, man. Majority of the season, he has played those 2 heroes. If not that, it's Fredrin. He has 1 Baksha game, undefeated with it. The Joy is 1 for 3 or 1 for... Yeah, that's 1 for 3, if my math serves me right. And then the Akai has a 100% win rate, and I'd like to see Team Liquid Philippines actually pick this up more. I feel like this Akai is a big lesson from them from the mid-season cup. Of course, a lot of teams use the Akai to incredible effect. Team Liquid Philippines in game 1 or 2, in game 1 against SRG, they were victims to the Akai of Sekais. So hopefully they bring that more into the playoffs. I love Akai, y'all know that, and I would always ask teams to pick a guy even more if they can. Oheb. So a lot of one-offs. The most important one to look at is this. It's this Cho pickup that they picked up in their final series against AP Bren. Game number 2 to close out the season. Cho gold lane for Oheb. And this came up after Eman picked it in the BTR versus Onyx series in day 2 of week number 8, and it might be coming back in the playoffs as one of the topics to look out for. I think 100% you can no longer give the 1-1 to Team Liquid Philippines. Teams have tried. 3 is more than enough. Just don't give it if you're willing to play into it. Even though I'm one of those dudes who really think just don't give 1-1 to anyone. Respect all the gold laners in the league. Respect all of them. Yeah, just be ready for it, okay? They did also have that one Nathan game that I think took Team Falcons PH by surprise in their first round matchup, if I'm not mistaken. It took someone by surprise. I think it might have been Onyx that they brought this up. So yeah, Oheb, one of the iconic Rangers of the league, 7 out of 10 this season. Harith, of course, with Dominkite being the undoubtedly best Harith of the season. A lot of the Harith stats just pale in comparison, but you still have to, you know, watch out for that if it ends up in anyone's hands. Claude, Lunox, no wins for them. I don't like how they play around their Claude here. It doesn't feel as liquid as it could. For Liquid, I want to see burst. I want to see fast, even in terms of their gold laners and their best heroes. That one game where they won with Cho, Bane, Bruno, 1-1. Yes, 1-1 does need to take time, but how they play around the 1-1, they tell Oheb, yo, just get out of the lane and join the rest of us. We'll get you gold through here, and then we'll go for the lane switch at Turtle 2 or Turtle 3. The Nathan surprise burst factor, 1 item in. I swear to goodness, watch out for that. We all know how Granger works. So Moskov for the split push surprise factor, and of course the Harith. A lot of those are a little bit more Team Liquid in my eyes. Claude, even the Lunox, not so much. Obsidia, still don't know how to feel about her. I need to see way more games with Obsidia getting picked. Going to Sanford's pick, the Lapu-Lapu man of the season, of course, Edward up there as well. So him and Edward are the Lapu-Lapu dudes for season 16, alongside James as well. I think I need to shout out James and 3 more. So most of the time they'll pick up the Lapu-Lapu or the Phovius. Of course, Arlot, still very good for Team Liquid Philippines. Very worthy respect ban, or just making sure that Sanford doesn't end up with the Arlot. Not impossible to beat it, but the safe choice is to just not go up against it. But one thing that you have to watch out for when you're playing up against Team Liquid Philippines is they have that surprise glue pickup that has done well for them this season. And I think out of all the teams, this glue, the Team Liquid PH glue, because of how it performed in MSC season 15 and the 2 times we got to see it in season 16, I'd rather not give it to them if I was like drafting against Team Liquid PH. This one-off Dyroth pick, I don't know if we're gonna see this again, because this was in round 1 of Liquid versus Falcons, or was it round 2? Yeah, was that? No, yeah, it was round 1. It was a weird game where they went Angela mid, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna see Dyroth again, even though it dominated in that game, but who knows. Alice also an option for them, so just watch out for that. And to round it out, we got Sanji, Farsa, Jusin, clearly those 2 heroes. Kimmy, I believe it was, I mix it up now, who got the Savage in the Kimmy and who got the Savage of the Jusin. I think Sanji got the Jusin Savage and then Yue got the Kimmy Savage, or I could be mixing up, but regardless, Sanji got a Savage. Undefeated Selena as well, so that's a surprise pick that you have to watch out for, and something that we were stating earlier in their drafting patterns. And weirdly enough, Lunox does well for Team Liquid Philippines at the mid lane, but again, it is very liquid if they decide to go Kalea, Lunox together, just quick burst them down fast, stampede, very liquid like. So I think that might actually show up a little bit more as an option in if you're wondering why certain teams would be banning out the Lunox from Liquid. you know, it's because of that. Let's just look at drafts already and analyze that. I think it would be best to start off by looking at the drafts of these two teams when they went up against each other in the second round of the regular season. So first picks, Falcons, game 1 picked CC. Falcons game 3 went for the Lancelot. Liquid game 2 first pick was the 1-1. So looking at their drafting priorities or banning priorities, see, look, the Juicin, Arlot, because they're going up against Team Liquid, gotta take that out. And then the Kalea over here, because again, they're not looking to rush the Kalea. They're not looking to rush any of these three heroes. They have a clear idea of what they want to go for. And when you want to pick up the CC, you want to reduce the possibilities of a strong pick off getting taken away in the first half, which is why, of course, you'd want to take out the Kalea. But then it also makes sense to, if you're Team Liquid, they ended up picking the Lancelot and the Lapu-Lapu first. Of course, going for the power picks, they decided to pick the Lancelot, knowing full well that high chance that the Isan Shin will be coming later for Team Falcons PH. And then of course, with the Lapu-Lapu gone, if you're Team Liquid, you're already going to be thinking about the power picks as well of Sanford, and you'd want to pick up the Lapu-Lapu. They take away the Uranus and they take away the Baksha, because the Baksha also could have been a strong first pick for Falcons, and that is something that I think the Team Liquid PH learned. If they can take the Baksha away from the opposing team, they'd want to, considering that the Baksha was one of the biggest reasons why they got like steamrolled by Aurora in the earlier half of the second half of the season. So then we see the usual pattern after the CC pick by Falcons, because then they decided to pick up the Farsa and then the Yi Sun Shin afterward. So because again of the surprise CC priority that Falcons decided to roll with, their typical priorities of the Yi Sun Shin and the Farsa just went here instead of going usually here, one of these two, and then this come out and then another pick here. They just changed things around. But then again, the beauty of the CC pick is because now it can go into the gold lane, and that's one of the biggest effects that the CC brought to drafts after Project Next. Now looking at Team Liquid, after the first two picks, they then decided to pick up the Harith so that they have a strong gold lane pick locked in already. But because once you see this Harith on the side of Team Liquid, I think maybe a part of that is Team Liquid accepting that they will end up in the matchup of the CC versus the Harith in lane. But then just to round it out, later on Falcons would go for the XP Esmeralda. They pick up a Roam Hilda. As time went on, this became quite difficult, but then with the CC and Esmeralda together, that helped cover the front line, especially this Esmeralda, because the Hilda would be running around trying to go for pick off. You don't exactly think of her as a frontline hold. She's more there to try and disrupt and bother what the Grok wants to do and what Team Liquid wants to do as a whole. And then you also see the bans of Team Liquid. They take out the Bane surprise option that could have come in the gold lane, because they still could have put the CC in the EXP and then go for gold lane Bane. But even with that gone, there's already a clear path of picking CC Gold, Esmeralda, EXP. So that was just great drafting decisions by Team Falcons. Eventually, JP would end up with the Grok as his pick for the Roam. Honestly, the long run, not a bad pick. Still, even though there's a lot of shields that it could be stolen by the Esmeralda, the Lapu-Lapu is the Esmeralda is usually a nightmare mashup for the Lapu-Lapu. I think the draft overall by Falcons, it was just dictated by them because of the surprise first pick CC, and they adjusted and finished off the draft very well. It was still a difficult game to pull off. Very good game to watch. Watch it if you haven't yet. So despite the big win in the draft, execution still became a factor. Liquid really took it to Falcons, but then Falcons was able to walk away with the win because of the surprise play that Few and Kyle TZ did to close out game number 1. Now going to game number 2. I give the 1-1. Don't give 1-1 anymore. Really, I don't want to see the 1-1 get picked up. And look at Falcons already respecting that the Arlot could just come in as the first pick right away for Team Liquid. You don't even need to rush either the Lancelot or any other jungler pick there. They decided to ban out the Arlot. Chip was banned out as well because it could go into any of these 3 slots, and the Juicin. So this is forward-thinking banning, because they knew that they were going to give up the 1-1. They decided, okay, we give the 1-1, but at least we'll pick up the Farsa and the Baksha together for fast rotations at the center of the map. Okay, that's the trade they decided to go for. They get the 1-1. What if we just pick up a jungler and a mid laner that with their aggressive rotations could mean that they could end the game before the 1-1 could even pop off? But then later in the draft, Liquid rounded it up beautifully with the Selena pick. Selena is the stopper for fast rotating roams, mids, jungles, because you get vision and where they are, and an Abyssal Arrow could stop those rotations and engagements easily. However, they decided to pick the Selena into a Franco, which is admittedly very brave, because if you want to go in, what if suddenly out of nowhere you go in with your combo and Ogwen's fast enough to just go Flicker Bloody Hunt, counter that, pop him right away, that's already disadvantage, and then you're just gonna have to scramble. However, the Gatot Kacha and Selena together actually puts a lot of threat towards the Pharsa and the more somewhat static nature of the Franco. Yes, even though Franco can threaten a lot of the rotations in the center of the map by hiding in bushes and then getting a really good hook, the Gatot Kacha and Selena together are overwhelming for a Pharsa to deal with, which is why if you look at the game, few had a hard time really finding the right position and finding the right tempo because Sanji was hitting his Abyssal Arrows. Then Falcons decided to round out their draft with a Moskov and an Alice. Longer engaged team fights, but then the Alice took a lot of losses a little bit too early on. Couldn't really get the ball rolling. You want to get the Winter Crown fast if you're this Alice going up against a 1-1. Tip for y'all there. However, you could not rush it in this scenario. At the end of the day, the Winter Crown still needed to be the 4th item built by Flapteasy, if I'm not mistaken there, because he needed to build more utility because he's the one holding the front line for this Franco and Baksha. The Baksha can only hold so much because you'd want to keep him alive for the Retribution. I'm looking at the objective team fighting here. And then the Franco, we all know, isn't really gonna take up a lot of damage and sponge. He'll hook, he'll bite. Afterwards, he'll just do damage. He'll just be doing basic attacks, whatever. Not much there. So it was a little bit too demanding for the Alice. It was also a really great Lapu-Lapu game for Sanford. Now that he's not going up against an Esmeralda, he was just hitting Landshakers here and there. So that was a good round out of the draft by those two, but ultimately I liked Liquid's draft more, and then they eventually won it. You still see though that the Fanny is getting respected by Team Liquid PH. They knew that they were gonna pick up the Wanwar, and if you're on the blue side, and this is one of the signals that you want to pick up the 1-1. So then Team Falcons PH had time to adjust the eventual 1-1 pick. Again, this was their answer. But if you see a Fanny blue ban, of course, right now Fanny isn't that rushable in blue 1. It can get picked up blue 2-3, red 1-2, excuse me. And so they decided to ban it. And then, of course, because this was after the great Uranus performance of Flapteasy, look, Liquid decided to ban Uranus in all 3 games, making sure that Flap doesn't end up with it. And of course, we all know that Alice did struggle again and was the pick that he ended up with. So good priority banning there by Liquid. Take out the Yisun Shin as well, and they'll take it out in game number 3 just to fully respect what Kaltese can do there. And I would be surprised if the Yisun Shin makes it through again for Falcons in their series in the playoffs. I think Liquid will be hellbent in making sure that Uranus and the Yisun Shin does not end up in the hands of Falcons, because they play very comfortably. And Flap's so annoying with picking up the Uranus, dude. Like, just don't give it. Like, just be safe. Don't give it. Of course, Falcons also needed some burst damage as well, so they take out the Harith and the Granger in the second phase. Great banning by Team Liquid, great threat assessment and the requirements needed by Falcons, since they ended up with a marksman that takes a long time in the fights, a long time to build up. Eventually, the lineup of Falcons was just too slow to what Liquid brought, which is a lot of tempo, a lot of fast scaling through these 4 alone. And all of them can supplement the scale and farm of the 1-1. So great draft there by Liquid. Then heading into game number 3, that's where you see the Juicin, Arlot, Kalea priority bans once again by Falcons, while Liquid decided to switch things up with their priority bans. They go for the 1-1 Yisun Shin, making sure not giving that, and they go Uranus. With the Yisun Shin gone, and knowing the tendency of Liquid to just pick up the Lancelot, they steal the Lancelot, which is why the Joy and Angela came in last for Team Liquid. However, they did float the idea of, hey, what if Team Liquid are actually gonna be picking up the Baksha? Surprise pick there, you know, because they already could have their jungler. Okay, that's good. Because with the Lapu Lapu and Baksha priority, they know that they're gonna be giving up strong power picks with quick burst and scale through the Pharsa and the Harith. Esmeralda then gets picked up there by Falcons, which still, again, would somewhat struggle up against the Baksha a little bit, just reducing the healing that she can get and the shielding that she could get. But then they rounded out with a Kaja. So now you have this is your main engine of farm. The Kaja, wait, that's way too many arrows. The Kaja and then the Pharsa together at the center of the map. And of course, you also cannot downplay the combination of the Kaja and Lancelot together. Not as instant burst, but usually in most scenarios what you see is Kaja goes for the pull, Lancelot, Thorn Rose, not enough damage to take down the pull target of the Kaja. As the opponent is flickering or going away, Lancelot will commit the puncture, dash through, reach the back line, help reduce the impact of the heroes trying to help the target of the Kaja from getting away, and then you have the Pharsa to close it off with the feathered airstrike. So that's one of the usual patterns that you see with that combination. So Team Liquid decided to round out with the Granger, Angela, and Joy, surprisingly enough, and poetic. This was a very poetic sequence because it was the Angela and Joy that actually got Falcons. Again, I said this in the broadcast. I was casting that time. It got Falcons a lot of flack for picking up that combo. Now, Team Liquid was the ones who decided to bring it up. And yes, this Joy for Carl TZ was a monster. It was very difficult to deal with. Oheb couldn't get as much kills or as much impact in the game because when they're playing up against a Joy and Angela, by the time things have already gotten to the point where the Granger could join in, everyone's dead. Either Falcons have backed off because they're waiting for this Granger to show up, or the Joy and the Angela together already cleaned them up alongside the Baksha and the Lapu Lapu. Hence one of the reasons why Oheb only ended up with like a kill and a death in that game, like 1-0 or 1-1-0, something like that. So that's one of the reasons for that. So in that draft alone, in that game, you see the tendencies of the two. Very clear picture. And as much as I wanted to look at the other drafts, I feel like this video has gone long enough. So hopefully that's okay. Hopefully that settles. I think that paints a perfect picture of how these two teams draft, how we might expect them to draft for their series and for the playoffs. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment, like, don't forget to subscribe as well, and I'll see you for day 0. That's gonna be a special broadcast. It's not gonna be live. I think it's gonna be pre-recorded. You'll be able to watch day 0 the day or the night before the playoffs. So that's actually gonna be tomorrow, because I'm gonna post this on October the 20th, very late at night. So catch it on October 21st evening. All right, see you there, and I'll see you for what I'm pretty sure will be the largest, grandest, and awesomest playoffs of MPL Philippines that we'll ever get in the history so far. Yeah, see you guys.